You know what the worst gardening advice I ever got was? Plant in spring. That's it. That's all anyone ever said. Plant in spring. And I'd go out there in March, excited, ready to go, plant everything, and then watch half of it struggle, stall, or fail entirely. It took me a long time to understand that within spring, there's a window that changes everything. And that window is May, not March, not April, May. The soil is finally warm enough that roots actually grow instead of just sitting there. The days are long, the nights are mild, and perennials planted in May have every advantage. If you've ever planted perennials early in the season and been underwhelmed by how they performed, I want you to hear this, because the timing might have been working against you the whole time. I'm going to walk you through the 12 best perennials to get in the ground specifically in May, and by the time we get to number 3, you're going to see why the timing of that one in particular is something most gardeners get completely wrong. Let's go. Number 12, daylily. Daylilies are May planting champions for one simple reason: they establish extremely fast in warm soil and reward you with blooms the same season. Plant them in May, and you'll have flowers by midsummer without question. Daylilies are among the toughest perennials available. They handle heat, drought, poor soil, competition from tree roots, and general neglect better than almost anything else. Modern daylily varieties have expanded far beyond the old orange roadside ditch lily. Today you can find reblooming varieties that flower in early summer, go through a brief rest, and then rebloom in late summer and fall. Varieties like Stella d'Oro, Happy Returns, and Rosy Returns are reliable reboomers that work in virtually any garden situation. Plant them in full to partial sun, give them decent drainage, and they will multiply and improve every single year with no care required. Number 11, Shasta Daisy. There's something deeply satisfying about Shasta Daisies. That clean white with a yellow center is classic American garden beauty, and they are absolute workhorses. Plant them in May, and they'll reward you with blooms by early summer and continue through midsummer. They prefer full sun and well-drained soil, and they're very tolerant of heat once they get established. Deadhead them regularly, and they'll rebloom. Cut them back by about a third after the main flush of flowering, and they'll produce another round of blooms in late summer. I grow the variety Becky. It's taller, more robust, and more heat-tolerant than many of the compact varieties. The clumps benefit from division every 2 to 3 years to stay vigorous. They're not long-lived in the way that some other perennials are, but for pure mid-season impact, Shasta daisies are hard to beat. They also make excellent cut flowers, which in my household means they earn their keep twice. Number 10, Salvia. May is the ideal planting time for salvias because the warm soil triggers fast root establishment, and a well-rooted salvia will start blooming by early summer and keep going until frost. I've covered salvias before in the context of heat tolerance, but I want to talk about them here specifically in the context of May planting because the timing matters. Salvias planted in cold April soil can sit dormant and stressed for weeks before doing anything. Plant that same salvia in May soil, 55 to 60 degrees minimum, and it takes off within days. The roots reach out, the plant puts on growth, and by June you have an established blooming plant rather than a struggling one. For May planting specifically, I recommend May Night. It lives up to its name, blooming early and heavily, and Caradonna for its elegant dark stems and long bloom season. Full sun, good drainage, and they'll be the backbone of your summer garden. Number 9, coneflower. Echinacea is a May planting star because it's a heat lover that needs warm soil to establish well, and May gives it exactly that. Bare root and potted coneflowers planted in May will establish their deep root systems through the summer and produce some blooms the first season, with full performance in subsequent years. One thing I want to address here is the establishment gap. People plant Echinacea and feel disappointed because the first year performance is modest, but this is completely normal and worth the wait. A 3-year-old coneflower clump in good conditions is one of the most spectacular things in a summer garden. Dozens of stems, continuous bloom from midsummer into fall, seed heads that feed goldfinches through winter. Give it full sun and average to lean soil. Rich soil actually makes Echinacea floppy, and plant it in May when the soil is warm enough to encourage that deep root development from the start. Number 8, Coreopsis. Coreopsis is one of the fastest establishing perennials you can plant in May, and that speed means you'll likely see blooms within a few weeks of planting. That kind of immediate gratification is genuinely motivating, especially if you're establishing a new bed. Coreopsis grandiflora types like Early Sunrise and Sunfire bloom heavily in their first season. The threadleaf types like Zagreb take a season to establish but then return reliably for years. They all want full sun and sharp drainage. Avoid fertilizing them heavily. Too much nitrogen, and you get lots of leaves and very few flowers. I plant Coreopsis in groups of 3 or 5 along sunny border edges where I want continuous golden color from early summer through fall. They hold up well even in the hottest, driest periods of the season. For a first-year perennial garden that needs to look good right away, Coreopsis is one of your best tools. Number 7. Baptisia. Baptisia is on this list again, and with good reason. May is actually the single best month to plant Baptisia because container-grown plants have their best chance of establishing deeply during the warm months ahead. Here's what I want you to understand about Baptisia. It is a long-term investment. In the first year, it will look modest. In the second year, it will start to look like something. In the third year and beyond, it becomes a shrub-sized, architecturally significant plant that blooms every spring and then provides structure and foliage interest all season. The taproot goes deep, really deep, and once it's established, you will never need to water it, fertilize it, or divide it. Plant it in May, in full sun to light shade, in decent drainage, and then leave it completely alone. Mark where you planted it because it's slow to emerge in spring and easy to accidentally disturb. The payoff is a 15 to 20 year plant that improves every single year. That's the kind of investment I want to make in my garden. Right here, in the middle of this list, I want to share something I learned the hard way that applies to every single plant on this list. May planting is not just about putting plants in the ground. It's about what you do in the first 3 weeks after planting. The most common cause of May planted perennial failure isn't heat. It isn't poor soil. It isn't variety choice. It's inconsistent watering during establishment. New roots cannot reach moisture that's more than a few inches away. So for those first 2 to 3 weeks, check the soil at root depth every single day. Not the surface at root depth. If it's dry at 2 to 3 inches, water thoroughly. After 3 weeks, the roots have spread enough to be much more self-sufficient. After 6 weeks, most of these plants need very little supplemental water at all. That transition from fragile new plant to established perennial happens in May and June, and how you manage it determines how your garden performs for years. Now let's finish this list, because the plants coming up, especially number 3, are the ones I specifically hold back until May for good reason. Number 6, penstemon. Penstemon is one of the most beautiful native perennials in North America, and it is criminally underplanted. It produces tubular flowers in pink, red, purple, white, and lavender on upright stems from late spring through midsummer. And hummingbirds go absolutely wild for it. There are hundreds of species and dozens of garden-worthy cultivars, and May is the perfect time to plant them because they establish quickly in warm soil and often bloom within their first season. Penstemon needs excellent drainage. It will absolutely rot in wet, heavy clay, but in well-drained average to poor soil, it's tough, drought-tolerant, and long-lived. The eastern native species like Penstemon digitalis are more adaptable to heavier soils and humid conditions than the western dryland species. Start with digitalis if you're in the east or midwest, and you'll have reliable, vigorous plants that hummingbirds find instantly. Number 5, Veronica. Veronica is one of those perennials that earns its spot in the garden through sheer reliability and season-long performance. The upright varieties produce dense spikes of deep blue, purple, pink, or white flowers from early summer into fall. And they are among the easiest perennials to grow successfully. They want full sun and good drainage, and in those conditions they grow steadily into larger clumps that you can divide every few years to multiply your stock. The variety Sunny Border Blue is particularly outstanding. It won the Perennial Plant of the Year award and it completely earned it. Dense violet blue spikes, long bloom season, heat and humidity tolerant. I planted mine in May several years ago, and it's been reliable every single season since without any special attention. For beginners building their first perennial border, Veronica should be on the short list. It performs well and makes the whole garden look more intentional. Number 4, Agastache. I mentioned Agastache in the heat tolerance list, but I want to expand on it here in the context of May planting specifically. Agastache is a warm season perennial that absolutely comes alive in heat, and a May planting gives it the full summer warmth it needs to develop into the spectacular plant it's capable of being by midsummer and fall. Plants put in the ground in March or early April frequently sit sulking in cold soil and actually get established slower than plants put in May. Because the root growth temperature for agastache is much higher than for cool season plants. May planted agastache rockets out of the gate and catches up to and often surpasses earlier planted specimens by July. Blue Fortune and Kudos Coral are my two top variety recommendations. Full sun, excellent drainage, and by August you will have a cloud of flowers covered in every pollinator in your neighborhood. Number 3. Hardy Hibiscus. This is the May planting that most gardeners get wrong, and it's the one I most want to change your mind about. Hardy hibiscus is one of the most dramatic perennials you can grow in an American garden. Dinner plate flowers in white, pink, red, and bicolored in sizes up to 12 inches across on plants that get 4 to 6 feet tall, and it is completely winter hardy in zones 4 through 9. The reason most gardeners struggle with it is they try to plant it too early. Hardy hibiscus is one of the absolute last perennials to emerge in spring. It doesn't even show above ground until soil temperatures are consistently warm, often not until late April or May. If you plant it in cold April soil, it sits dormant, potentially rotting at the crown. Plant it in May when the soil is warm and it establishes explosively. I held my last batch of hibiscus plants until mid-May, planted them in full sun with rich, moisture-retentive soil, and by August they were over 5 feet tall and covered in blooms. The flowers are extraordinary. There's genuinely nothing else in the perennial world that looks quite like them. If you've been intimidated by hardy hibiscus, or if you've tried it and failed, try again in May. The timing makes all the difference. Number 2. Russian sage. Russian sage makes this list for the same reason it's on the heat tolerance list. It's exceptional. But here I want to focus on why May planting specifically unlocks its full potential. Russian sage needs heat to thrive. Cold, wet spring soil delays establishment significantly and can cause crown rot in young plants. May soil temperatures allow it to establish quickly and put down the deep root system it needs before the heat of summer arrives. A well-established Russian sage handles summer heat and drought without any stress at all. Plant it in full sun with excellent drainage and give it space. It gets large. Don't crowd it or try to contain it. Let it grow into the airy, flowing 5-foot specimen it wants to be. And by midsummer, you'll have one of the most beautiful and low-maintenance plants in your entire garden. The combination of Russian sage with hardy hibiscus and agastache in a full sun border is one of my favorite late summer combinations. Bold texture, movement, and color from July through October. Number 1, peony. And here we finish with the queen of the May garden. Yes, peonies. May is when they bloom, but more importantly for this list, May is one of the best times to plant bare root peonies if you're getting them from a late season sale, or to divide and transplant established clumps as the bloom period wraps up. Fall is the traditional planting time for peonies, and it remains excellent. But May planting of container-grown peonies works very well if you do it right. The key is planting depth. The eyes, the red growth buds at the crown, should be no more than 1 to 2 inches below the soil surface. Deeper than that, and they will grow beautifully green and lush and never bloom, no matter how long you wait. Peonies are among the most long-lived garden plants that exist. There are documented peonies still blooming that were planted over 100 years ago. They're deer-resistant, they're fragrant, they produce some of the most beautiful cut flowers of any garden plant, and once established, they require absolutely nothing from you. In terms of return on investment, the peony may be the single best perennial purchase you ever make. May is not just another month in the gardening calendar. It's the month where the whole season gets decided. What you put in the ground now, in warm soil with the long summer ahead, is what you'll be enjoying for years and decades to come. I'd love to know which plant from this list you're most excited to add to your garden. Drop it in the comments and tell me what zone you're in too, because that always changes the conversation. If this video helped you think about your spring garden differently, share it with someone who's just getting started. It might save them a few years of trial and error. There's a follow-up video right here on building a no-fail perennial border for beginners that I think you'll find really useful. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I'll see you in the next one.